thick fog devours the sky. Memories of sunshine fade. A world where all the colors die. The wind howls as clouds pass by. It's a tumultuous storm parade. A thick fog devours the sky.
The sunlight's gone, far out of sight. All is left in hues of gray. A world where all the colors die. You can't escape, although you try. The path before is laid. A thick fog devours the sky. Walk with hopes and dreams to fly. Find somewhere far from this charade. A world where all the colors die. A distant man with tears in eye. Is he real or just a shade? Thick fog devours the sky. A world where all the colors die.
Once upon a time, there was a man. He was old, ancient, really, having seen millennia in the blink of an eye. He was also so very lonely, isolated, really, stoic to all who could see him from the outside. He was a complicated man. His past was troubled, the details of which kept him isolated from those around him. You see, he was the devil, and certain understandings and duties come along with that. People hurt him. He hurt people. It was the balance of things, and so what else could be said? He was the devil, and it was his job to cause suffering. And cause suffering he did. For most of the stretch of history, he lived through the cycle of chaos and destruction, creation and corruption. Civilizations rose to prominence and then crumbled into nothing. People grew and worked and built great and divine things with their hearts and hands, only to watch it all corrupt and whittle into nothing. Lands were ravaged by crimson ribbons of destruction and despair. The shadows ran freely in glorious, glorious terror. It was all by him. He was the devil, and everyone who knew his work knew it for a fact. He was the author of much sorrow, the great and terrible king of the shadows. His work was powerful, but also had limits. Despite what he did or what he tried, the devil took no joy in his work, at least none that lasted. Civilizations fell, kingdoms crumbled, empires would grovel and beg for mercy. And yet none of it ever seemed to give him the satisfaction he wanted. He perfected his job to an art form, made suffering a symphony, and yet none of it could fill the emptiness within the devil's heart. For so long he wondered what was wrong with him. He looked to humanity. He looked to the growing civilizations with its growing technology and organization and possibilities, and in that moment he realized humanity was not good, nor was it evil. Humanity itself was neutral, having both a great capacity for good as well as an equally great capacity for destruction. They needed no devil or guide to lead them to good or evil, for their choices were their own, and anything they could come up with was far worse, far more dramatic than he could ever dream. This left the devil in a very messy place. For if humanity had no need of outside influences, where did that leave him? His role had left him hollow and unnecessary. So what to do? He took a step back from his kingdom, his works, his shadow, and the whole of his glory that previously defined him. He let go of it all and simply asked himself a question. Who am I? If humanity was open to the possibilities of both good and evil, then perhaps there was opportunity, if not potential, for him to be something else as well. He washed his hands of the shadows, of the destruction that had previously defined him. He left his domain and gave himself a new life with a new name, Dante. And this began his travel and his time amongst humanity. He searched, he learned, he grew. At times it was difficult, at times it was terrifying, but Dante persevered. Despite all odds, he learned and he changed. For the first time in his very long life, he felt alive. He gained a sense of humanity, and all the pains and emptiness of his past life faded away. Dante was free. But soon, of course, the world he left behind came to call. There was a ball in the grand and golden palace of celestial beings. All the grand entities who represented all the different aspects of existence gathered together. As the Lord of Shadows, corruption, and evil, Dante was expected to go. And he debated for the longest time whether or not it would be appropriate for him to show up. On one hand, he was far from the devil they expected him to be. He'd long since abandoned the title, and going back up could be painful. All their stares, their hesitations, those whispers. Was that really something he wanted to deal with again? On the other hand, Dante realized that this was an opportunity. He could show them all just how much he had changed, and how far he had come from the villain they made him to be. In the end, Dante decided it was within his best interest to go. Might as well show the others what he's become, talk to a few old friends, and check in, live up, show that they too could perhaps be a bit more than the duties they were bound to. And so he went, dressed in the finest of suits, black and dramatic, with a white flower pinned to his lapel. He showed up and greeted everyone who he came across with kind words and a gentle smile. Dante was the picture-perfect image of change and improvement. And yet, despite his efforts, the reputation of the devil seemed to stain over everything he had wanted. The ball was full of shifting eyes and hushed whispers. No one dared to approach him. No one dared to talk to him. Instead, he was forced to the corner, to be the villain once more in their eyes. Dante was disappointed, but he tried not to make a scene. For most of the ball, he lurked in the corner, alone and a bit bored. For the other parts of it, he felt lonely, annoyed, and bitter. He was so very ready to leave after an hour, and he would have. But that was when she walked into the room. Newest of the Celestials, a vision in her dress crafted from silver starlight, the noble Lady of Dream entered, bright and radiant like the gleaming light glistening off a full moon. After years of lacking leadership over the realm of dreams, she was formed and crafted to guide the subconscious realm of humanity's minds. Dante was stunned. From the moment she walked into the room, from the moment he first locked eyes with her, she took his breath away. He decided to stay at that point, and soon he would be glad of it. The princess of the night approached him. They talked. Despite his history and reputation, she approached him. She was kind and delightful. They talked together for hours. They laughed. They danced. And soon they found themselves spending the whole of the evening in each other's company. For the first time in a very long time, Dante didn't feel an emptiness in his chest. The Lady of Dreams seemed to take away a burden he hadn't fully realized he was still carrying. He told her a joke he had learned from the human world. She laughed. Everything about her was perfect. And Dante fell in love instantly. This, of course, was the beginning of the end. She comes from the east like the rising sun, my love, sweet darling Songbird. Her voice rings crisp with a flick of the tongue, and oh, how I linger upon her word. How do I hold thee, O creature of the sky, when we are so distant and yet so near? If I were to beg, would you still distantly fly? I would give up eternity for a moment of you here. To see you again so closely is all that I pray. I long for the opportunity to finally be together. However, I fear we're as distant as night and day. I fear the distance is not one we could weather. She flies from the west, like the setting rays. My songbird leaves for better days. You know, it's kind of sad. He was really something special. It takes a lot for a person to change, especially after being in a box for a millennia. And yet he did. He saw the pain he caused, and he looked for ways to do better. He let go of the past and tried to build something more. He was accountable, he was sincere, and he was honest. It takes a lot of strength to do that. Too bad Celine didn't pick any of that up when she had the chance. Oh well. A part of me can still feel her rattling around in there. It's like a nagging voice in the back of your head. Except this voice keeps crying and throwing herself a pity party, insisting that she did absolutely nothing wrong, that she's the good guy, that it was that mean and evil voice within her that corrupted everything. So pathetic, so sad. She was queen of the night, ruler of reverie. But now look at what's left. I don't even have to worry about planning a defense, because I know there's nothing to fight against me. You can't save yourself from a problem you refuse to acknowledge. That's how we got here in the first place. And now I'm the one in control. Celine was an interesting case, all herself. The new Lady of Dream. It's a lot for any one person to handle. She wanted to do a good job. She wanted to control. And so she reached out for help. Naturally, of course, Dante was foolish enough to join. Love clouds judgment, of course. So the two of them organized Reverie into something cohesive. And then they built a city. Or I guess the more accurate thing to say is that Dante built a city. He saw an opportunity to make a safe hold for all the other people, the outcasts, and those who've been labeled as undesirable or evil by the world. Celine helped him do it, of course. And somehow she ended up with most of the credit. Naturally, Dante didn't mind. Why would he? In his eyes, he was just supporting the woman he loved, his goddess and savior. That man did so much for her. He did everything in his power to help her shine and glow brightly for all. She was the sun, he was her moon, reflecting back all the glory and radiance that people expected her to have. It may seem lovely to some, but make no mistake, it was toxic. It was a very precarious position to be in. But of course, he was so blinded by love that nothing else seemed to matter. Love is a very messy thing, dears. It's irrational and blinding. It comes in so many forms, and only a small handful of those can be considered healthy. The rest, well, they put on their best performance, make you feel all sorts of things, and try to trick you into seeing what you want to see. Dante loved Celine like a person loves the future, like a person loves excitement. She represented the possibility of hope, change, a fresh start, and a place he could finally call home. He thought she would be the one to save him from his past. She was his goddess, his only guiding light. Everything he did was to support the future he saw with her. As for Celine, well, she would tell you she loved Dante as an equal. She had convinced herself of that for so very long, even though it was far from the whole truth. Celine did love Dante, but not in the way that a person deserves to be loved. She was in love with the idea of Dante, a dark prince turned to good through the power of love and self-reflection. He was just a project, just another piece of her divine, perfectly controlled world, proof of her own self-righteousness. She was good, holy, the savior to him, this poor and feeble being. She was nice, she was kind, But that affection only stretches as long as he manages to stay in line. Because again, she didn't love him. She loved the idea of him. And any time he slipped past that idea, any time he wasn't exactly what she wanted him to be, everything fell apart. Vanishing far away from home, leaving nothing here to see. Just an empty heart that's all alone. That's all you have left for me. The only peace I've ever known is that in which I gave to you. And now the roots begin to burn. What am I supposed to do? Hopes that shattered like glass. What's left here for me? I'm stuck behind, buried by our painful past. There's nothing left that can be seen. But if I were someone else, and if I were somewhere else, and if I were not myself, would all this be easier to bear? Don't place your salvation on someone else's shoulders. No matter how high and holy they seem, you'll always be disappointed in the end. Dante found himself on the brunt end of Celine's frustrations. After projects failed, cracks crept in, and mistakes were made. At first, she would only snap at him with words, each time quickly followed up with a sincere apology. Then the words came faster, and the apologies started happening less and less. I won't sugarcoat the details, even though I love to do that. She yelled at him. She berated him. She tore him apart in every way a person can verbally and emotionally do to another. It was cruel. It was disgusting, and there was no way to justify her sins. And yet, in his great delusional love, Dante would stand there and take it. Love blinds people to the truth, and he loved her. The outburst grew. Her anger became more and more. And then one day, she finally snapped. All the bereavement, all the hatred, all the fury went from verbal into physical. She calls me in a voice cutting clear. With a couple strikes, the dance begins anew. Her every motion pulls me through a vengeful fear. We play a game kept from public view. She paints my form with stripes of blue and red, finishing with words that cut like daggers. And soon every sense is left throbbing cold and dead. She leaves me numb and haggard. Her hands break down all flesh and bone, but that is hardly all she's done. She leaves me feeling small, alone. Every sense I knew turned numb. She leaves me as a broken pile. I am nothing more than something vile. I may be a monster. I may be cruel, and I may be a being of nightmares. But let it be known that I am only a reflection of the reality. Let it be known that I am but a shadow of the true person who pulls the strings. She was cruel, she was unforgiving, and she was despicable. And it's funny to think about. Not funny, haha, but funny, interesting. When she first hit him, the two were stunned. Dante was shocked she'd went so far. Celine was shocked she did it, and if she had any sense of humanity or goodness in her, she would have stopped it right there. She would have examined her own actions. She would have taken accountability and would have looked at what she had done and how it would have led, and she would have found a way to do better. But she didn't. Instead, she felt free. She felt good. She refused to listen to the horror at that disgusting little part of her that seemed to enjoy causing pain. It was a rush, a sensation, intoxicating. Celine found her new destructive addiction, and that's what tore everything apart. It's sad. Dante was really something special. He didn't deserve what she did to him. Nobody does. Him, least of all, after everything he's been through. It takes a lot for a person to change. It takes even more to be something after being trapped in a box for millennia. And yet, despite all of that, he did. He reflected on his actions. He repented for his sins wherever he could. He tried and tried over to be kind, to be honest, to be accountable, to be full of integrity. And yet, he was trapped in that situation. Maybe she tricked him. Maybe he was manipulated. Maybe love fooled him and blinded him once at all. Or maybe some sad part of him never fully got over all the villainy. Maybe in some sick way he thought he deserved the abuse. And he thought that suffering was the best form of love that he could possibly have. I do not claim to have the answers, because in the end, he left, and I am personally glad he got away. For all the suffering I have caused, for all the pain, for all the fear that you all currently live with, I am glad that he is no longer here. He deserved better than what she gave him, and I hope he found it. Upon his escape, he left a note for Celine, a baby blue envelope with a letter inside. To this day, she's never read it. She could never bring herself to do it. After all, how could someone so kind, so holy, so noble ever possibly hurt someone to the point where they would want to leave? Truly, it had to be his fault. Truly, she couldn't have done anything to harm him so. And so she tucked the envelope away. What happened to it? Even I'm not sure. It's just a relic of lost time. Oh well. The streets are now silent. The truth becomes unveiled to all those who will see it. And we are at the apex of reality, my children. Bask in it. Delusion blinds us from what we are. Suffering exposes the truth. Embrace the nightmares. Embrace the pains. See yourself as you really are. There isn't much left for me to do, and so I lay back and I rest. The consequences of Celine's actions fall upon our shoulders, and for that, I'm sorry. If only she could face the truth. If only she could be pulled from her delusions, forced to view what she has done and what it has cost. I would gladly step away, force her to repent of all of her sins. Because at the end of the day, I'm not the monster, I'm not the villain. I am merely a shadow. The force that exists to expose the truth and make you face reality. Some of you may hate me for this, but you cannot deny that the truth is important to understand. Good luck wherever you are. I hope you find what you need to see. I hope you learn what you need to learn. As for me, something rattles deep inside. A girl with vivid eyes sits trapped in a box, facing her own realities that she has tried to hide from. Will she make it? Will she find the hallways? Who's to say? All I know is that she is a bit different from the others. She carries her pain, but she does not let it hold her down. I'm curious to see where this will lead. But of course, it will wait. Until next time. Until next time. Dreamgirl City is a production by N.J. Scholes. It was written and produced by N.J. Scholes. The poems featured in this episode are Sonnet to My Monster, Easier, The Songbird, and A Stormy World, all by N.J. Scholes. Have a poem you'd like to submit? Have a comment? Just want to check in and make sure that I'm okay after giving this brief little peer into the darkness behind my soul? Email this and more to dreamgirlcityradio@gmail.com or check us out on our socials. We got a TikTok, we got an Instagram, we got a Tumblr, and we have a Facebook. Because Facebook is a lot cooler than Zuck wants it to be. Thank you so much to all of our supporters and for everyone sitting with us week after week. Now that we're here at the end, I just feel like I have to say, and I want to say, nobody has the right to make you feel lesser about yourself. Nobody deserves to be hurt, and nobody deserves to be trapped in any sort of terrible situation. So please, if you or a loved one is going through any sort of abuse, seek help, seek healing, and just know that there is a better world outside of all of that pain. And you deserve to see that better world. I am so grateful for every single one of you for tuning in and week out. And I hope you'll stick with me throughout the rest of this. Remember, there will come a better ending, so don't you dare stop defending yourself, not an abuser. Defend yourself.